Beyond the Wild.
Okay, are we ready?
Born ready, Ron.
Had a kid. JG, keep that in there.
Getting on here like I had no problems getting on here.
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Wild. We have got a special guest tonight. In fact, we all just watched him on television last night, kind of. We watched
in a roundabout way.
In a roundabout way, we watched him on television last night and this afternoon, because Mark watched this afternoon, I believe. But first, Mark, how's Canada?
Canada's great. Spring's coming. We got lots of migratory birds, waterfowl, swans coming through in huge flocks. Heard my first red-winged blackbird yesterday. Robins are here. Some winters they stick around. They didn't this year because it was traditional and cold. But the snow is melting super fast. Another 5 days, it's probably going to be gone. So it's a really fun transitional time with the daylight getting longer, and so things are great. As far as photography, people are buzzing. All the switching from owls to migratory birds, and it's ticking right along. So,
if you like that sort of thing,
yeah. That's my so Mike Fay, who gave me this hat. I messaged him about the great horns that are nesting by our roof, and he was like sent the emoji with the hand to the face. He's like, and you're not even going to take any pictures of it, kind of thing. But I will take pictures. I enjoy them here.
You'll take one with your cell phone. That's what I'm guessing.
I won't be able. I'll use the 800 because it's so close. I'll be able to pull it in.
Okay.
The question is, it's clear, but there's odd twigs around. So to get the window, I can't obviously get up there and do anything about that at this point. They're in a big white pine, but it's fun to have.
You need to get up there with a pruning saw one day when they're gone. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They used this nest about 10 years ago, and they rotate around the property, but they haven't been this close since. So yeah, in future, I mean, it's right beside the house. It's no big deal to prune it when they're not using it, but it's, we haven't had them use that one in consecutive seasons or years. So, but I will, Mike, take some pictures of it. And the female owl that's laying on the eggs right now is just beautiful with their head sticking up. And sometimes you can just see the feathers. Other times you can see the horns in the head. And today was so warm, I watched her out the bathroom window. That sounds funny. But they're that close with the binoculars, and she's panting in the sun, right? Just with the heat, but a real treat. But it's a fun time of year.
Jason just got back from stinking where?
Yeah.
Stinking where?
It looks look how colorful you are too.
A little extra color, I did. Yeah. I was able to avoid getting burned. Thank goodness. I took my beautiful bride to Bora for the over the water bungalow experience, and we had a great time. We had a really good time. So,
and what did you swim? What did you swim with?
Of course, I took my camera, and I actually got to swim with black tip sharks and rays, and all kinds of other fish. Obviously, there's really good snorkeling in there, that area too, and found out that actually the right time of year in the fall and into the winter months for us, you can swim with whales there as well. So, might have to get back there at some point just to go do that again. And it's incredible. The black tip sharks are not very big. They're about 5 to 6 feet at their biggest, but still pretty incredible to be in the water with a predator like that you feel perfectly comfortable around. I don't think they've, I'm stepping out of line if I say they've never had an attack. I think that there's been people that have been bitten before a long time ago, but they don't look at humans as a food source at all. So I've got the video I sent you guys, I think, where there's probably 15 of them just buzzing around us like no big deal. So pretty incredible experience. So,
and speaking of comfortable around predators,
yeah,
tonight's guest was my guide this last fall up in Churchill, Jimmy MacDonald. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, everybody. It's pretty fun to be on finally here. It made this happen.
So yeah, it took a couple attempts, but we're here. That's all that matters. So
Nice to
Jimmy's the
meet
one
you.
that we were, yeah, yeah. Jason and Mark are meeting Jimmy for the first time tonight. I
I've
had the
been following the
pleasure
page
of
for a while, and yeah, incredible stuff.
Jimmy had the pleasure of guiding me this last year in
Oh, did he?
Churchill.
You're so humble. I love it.
That's good. We're kind of like an inclusive company up there in Churchill. We take all types of people.
They put you with the problem children. But Jimmy was the one that we were talking about. He does a lot of guiding up there for film crews, and one of the projects that they were on that we're going to get into in a bit um, was on television last night. On is it The Americas? I believe
Yeah,
is
it's the new
the
America
series.
series on NBC with and Tom Hanks is the narrator. It's pretty cool seeing all his little interviews as he learns about wildlife and gets intrigued and stuff. That's kind of fun too on the back end.
Yeah, he's definitely no Sir David, but
Those
he
are some
did do a
big
good job. I
shoes.
was kind of surprised. So
Yeah,
Jimmy,
he's got the right like curious or inquisitive kind of voice and descriptions when he talks. Like he is actively learning about everything as he narrates. It's pretty fun.
yeah, how'd you get your start with guiding the film crews? Just out of curiosity, and then we'll get into
Uh,
photography later. But
well, actually, yeah, the first film crew was during the pandemic. So as like a lifelong tourism guide, kind of specializing in either paddling expeditions or the polar regions for kind of wildlife viewing or general tourism. Everyone was terrified about just things shutting down and just guides were having their careers halted. And for me, by it really just luck, like being at the right place in the right time and open to opportunity and set for it. My first film gig was the spring of I think it was spring of 2020, or no, it must have been the winter of 2021 or somewhere around there. But the the filmmakers came over from England and had all these COVID protocols. We all had to test out at a remote lodge. They got even kind of special permission to fly in and enter northern Canada and stuff. So based on the remoteness of where we were operating, and but yeah, just the right place, right time. I was kind of stuck at home without the regular work, and I was actively pursuing wildlife for a year with kind of a slow down in work, and then all of a sudden this film company said like, hey, maybe we get you out here and help us out with some polar bears. That launched it all off basically.
yeah, that's awesome. And some of the stuff that Jimmy's got, I think I think we can take it out if this is not the case. But I think the other clip that you showed us that wasn't in the Americas, I don't know what show that was for, but the hunting sequence um, with the polar bear and the beluga, that's out now, correct?
Yeah, that's out, and there'll be another one coming out soon too with same behavior. And it's interesting, quite often the projects or the different companies, they're reviewing the same material, kind of like there's only so many different types of animals, and unique behavior is unique behavior, and technology gets better. Now drones are so prevalent in wildlife photography. Even when you think it's shot from the ground, it could be from a drone. But there's a series out on Netflix called Predators that has a sequence of polar bears attacking belugas and harvesting them. But we filmed it again, and the new footage is just like night and day different. Knocks it out of the water. The clarity, the just the moment was so much more epic. So I can't wait to see that come out. And sometimes I get caught up in my head just remembering, oh yeah, there's such a time delay sometimes, depending on what episode it is and how much pressure there is to get the production out. Um, but the stuff from 2 summers ago of belugas getting caught by bears won't be out till 2026 at Christmas at best, which is wild to think that there's that much of a delay, and they're still going to be filming this spring in June again to recapture some stuff and kind of make it as good as possible.
That's crazy. So, what about photography? You've been you're an accomplished photographer as well as a guide. When did you get
Yeah.
started? How did you get started with photography and then videography? Because you've started doing a lot more hybrid work too, right?
Yeah, lots of still my favorite is photography. I think um in a sense, the kind of the fact that I still started with film back in the day, I think it would have been 2006 before I got a digital camera. 2005 or 6. Um, I still like photography more. I can in my house, I can see where you put a picture on the wall. I can show you a picture and talk about it sitting around having a drink. And um, but videos now are just so much more telling. You can kind of bring people in right into the experience and everything. And so I started doing more videos maybe 6 or 7 years ago, something like that, in Antarctica, because all of the kind of higher end photographers that were working with me guiding in Antarctica, they're taking more video, more video. Even if it's just on an iPhone, you go down there and it might be an iceberg, it might be a whale breaching, it might be penguins swimming, but just that, you know, short few like 10, 15 second clips just really captivate people and make them feel like they're actually there. And whereas a photo, as beautiful as it can be, that's more a specific moment versus the feeling of being with someone there. So I kind of, yeah, add it. I still resist videography because it's really challenging. It's a new thing to learn. Um, but I'm taking more and more because I do find it a fun way to share things and uh, and then getting better with wildlife photography, getting better in better situations or putting myself out there more often. It's fun to actually be there for these unique behavior item or behavioral moments, whether it's gory or dramatic or silly. It's just like the video captures it so well. So it's, yeah, slowly moving into the realm of video.
I was watching last night and I got kind of wrapped up in the sound design
Mm.
because so a lot of that was filmed with a drone, but every time there was a footstep, the sound design people did a great job of getting those nice snowy crunchy footsteps instead of listening to the drone. And so I got so wrapped up in that I turned it down and just started watching the
Oh
footage,
yeah.
turned the volume completely off, and some of the stuff you guys captured was incredible. Let's talk a little bit about that. You guys had a very unique interaction with. Well, I'm gonna let you tell it.
Well, yeah, and this is a pretty unidirectional story. I find a lot of times my stories hit tangents and go all over the place. But um, I'm working a few years ago out on the Hudson Bay, about 200, maybe 200 miles from Churchill, along the coastline. It is like you think Churchill's remote, or you think places in Nunavut are remote, but the coastline of Hudson Bay is unbelievable. It's inaccessible and inhospitable by water quite often. And so we were there during the freeze up period, and there's this ranging wolf pack that's going back and forth east to west across the coastline, and it's coming out to the coast because in the winter all the moose move up to the flats and the willow marshes, the raised beach ridges, and for protection. And so the wolves follow them and have no problem finding food. So they're cruising maybe 100 kilometer stretch every few days, back and forth, looking for things, marking territory. And um, we had been on this wolf pack and staying with them and positioning ourselves out in front by miles by snow machine on the ice. And the wolves would come out of the forest and travel across the ice and make use of the easier conditions to make more miles. And we kind of got to the end, and the whole pack, 17 of them, had bedded down and were staying still, but also in an area with a lot of polar bears. And there's this kind of sandy peninsula that sticks out off the coast, and it has maybe 10, 15 meters of altitude. That's how high the beach ridges are. So you don't even know you're near the ocean. And it's this secluded spot, far from town, far from harassment of tourism or the scientists that are tagging bears and things. And so these bears out there must have been 20 to 30 of them in this little small region, like a square mile or 2 square miles, if that. You could stand on the hill and look around at just bear, bear, bear. It was pretty cool. And it's right before freeze up. So the males are just kind of getting anxious, and young cubs that are 3 years old, their mums push them away, are roaming around looking for guidance, like how to get out on the ice and where's some food. And so we followed this wolf pack, and we have gotten as far from our kind of camp as possible, given the short daylight hours and bad conditions. And we're just like crossing our fingers, like, okay, there's bears, there's wolves, something's going to happen. And so we go home that night, kind of as it gets dark, travel back in the night. And the next day we wake up and it's blizzarding. So we can't even go. We're just sitting there on our hands thinking, like, what's happening? What's happening? So the very next morning, leave extra early, travel in the darkness, get there before sunrise. And long story short, there is the craziest thing in the world we've ever seen. A fully grown adult male bear, verified it's a male, and dead in the snowbank, and fully intact, no external injuries, no signs of anything. It's died in a snowbank, and its body heat has sunk, and with its heat, and melted right down to the ground. You could see a bit of vegetation. And so over the course of what is that, like 36 hours at the most, this bear's died. And now we're going, like, what's happening? So the wolf pack is in the area, bears are in the area, and now there's a dead gigantic bear, like 1,200 pounds or more, a fully healthy male. And we're going, what's happening? Well, the wolves are so successful in the area, they just look at it and they go, well, that's fine, we're here for moose. And so they take off and they go off in another direction. So now about a week goes by, and we're back in the area filming and watching things. A blizzard has came in and drifted over the bear and hidden it almost completely. And then we go back to site, and we've been there a few days, and we've seen the wolf pack chasing some younger bears, and the tension's kind of building. Like, what's going to happen? Like, the filmmakers, they want this high action chase of a bear and a wolf, and something happening, a climax in their story. And we go back and we see the wolf pack, and it's now gone to the carcass of this dead bear, and they've started to feed on it. So we're going, oh, this is interesting. So there's a story here, but it's not the one we were expecting. And so we're hunkered down as this family of wolves have been eating, napping, playing. We're there for a day, like 12 hours of watching this happen, kind of thing. And then we see a bunch of the young wolves, the pups from that year, and they head off out towards the beach ridges, a little closer to shore, and they're doing something. And so we split up, we go check out what's going on, and sure enough, there is a bear that has been killed by another polar bear. It's complicated, like our guesswork, or it's really guesswork still as to how it died, but that polar bear was eaten and peeled like an orange, which is the exact same way that the bears kill and eat a seal. They pull back the skin and lick the inner side of the skin just completely free of fatty reserves. And so there's this bear that has been killed by another bear, and it has been eaten by the bear in the way a bear eats its kill. So we're going, holy, this is unreal. We've got two bears in the vicinity of each other. There's a wolf pack feeding on the one. Now they're feeding a bit on both, bouncing around. It's chaos. And I look at the cameraman next to me and I go, you know what's going to happen? We're going to have this bear show up, and it's going to come back to finish its meal. And so sure enough, like on cue, I glance up at the horizon, and it's 10, 15 meters above me up on this beach ridge. This lumbering massive bear, scarred up face, just strolls like nothing across the horizon, glances down at us, and then turns and comes down and goes, basically in its head was probably, who's this on my kill? And here we are right amongst the wolves as they're feeding. And sure enough, now this bear just shows up on scene. And so in the end, there's like a tense standoff, but just like the footage shows, the size of that male bear or adult bear, either way, is way too big of a deterrent to this wolf pack. So despite, you know, everybody's hopes that there was going to be a huge chase and an attack, it just takes a couple of lumbering steps and a bit of a snap of its jaws, if that, and the wolf pack kind of has to retreat. But the amazing thing I thought out of the whole thing was, like, to the credit of the wolves was it, and we saw this repeatedly watching the wolves killing moose. They're so smart. They're so good at hunting. The adults are. The pups from the year, they acted, you know, like teenagers. They're off there showing off, chasing everything that moves, you know. They're eating a moose and then one kills a hare, or they're eating a moose and one kills a ptarmigan, just to kind of show that they can contribute. But when this big bear came in, it was only the young, kind of half the pack, that approached it. The larger, or the older adults, just stayed back, watched what was happening, and thought, you know, not worth our time. It's not going to happen. And so it's a pretty amazing encounter to be there, and to have that one bear die mysteriously of some sort of internal injuries. It ended up probably being like a sepsis, like an internal injury causing a blood infection. But we talked to some veterinarian scientists about that, and the kind of factors leading to that. But then to see this young bear get killed in a fight and eaten by its compatriot, the other polar bear, was pretty stunning. And then just by coincidence of putting in the effort and day after day staying near this wolf pack, and being able to travel in that terrain, being there at the moment when everything came together, and you saw the main bear that had done that had made the kill, and you had seen the wolf pack feeding, scavenging, and everything. It was pretty surreal. Definitely like I don't know. I don't really rank things. It seems like every year something crazy happens, but it'll be a memorable moment for the rest of my life. That's for sure.
Oh, for sure. And they could have gone so many different directions with that story. And I'm glad to hear that, you know, the way that you described it. And as we were talking a little bit before the show started, they kind of stuck to the actual storyline, the natural storyline. And
yeah, it's really, that was, you know, I was talking with one of the cameramen even the morning when the episode was airing. And I asked them, like, you know, have you seen it yet? How is it? And they're on a shoot way up in the Arctic right now. And we're chatting on WhatsApp, and I go like, hey, what's it going to be like? And he goes, I haven't even seen it. You're going to have to tell me. And so I told him about the trailer, and I go, wow, like it could go either way. Like they're setting up a pretty interesting story in a, you know, true kind of Hollywood fashion. But then on watching it, it was just like really reaffirming that this was BBC, the production company, and making it for another company. But they really stuck true to real life, what was happening, and didn't have to propose or fabricate. I shouldn't say fabricate, but they didn't have to stretch it to make it interesting. It was a good story, and they also kind of stuck with the dynamics of, you know, it was a tough winter with a late freeze up, and it was difficult for the bears to get on the ice. So there's a very credible link with climate change and conditions, but also not being too doom and gloom. Just stating it matter of factly, like this is a changing climate, and these are the tough conditions at a marginal environment. Like, you know, it's the end of the territory for the wolves, and it's the end of the territory or range for the polar bears, and they're both trying to kind of carve out their living. So I was pretty impressed, like, to see something like that, and to be able to go, they nailed it. You know, they stuck true to real life, and got some amazing footage too. Like,
I want to know who went out and verified there was a male bear.
Yes. It was a very tense moment. You know, we were actually, that was like, we had been putting in so much time and effort, and we had so many good encounters with bears, but we were like, there was something going on. Like, I'm maybe stretching it, but you could really sense that these bears were getting anxious to head out on the ice. They were a little bit more ornery with each other. They weren't focused on us whatsoever. They were constantly walking the edges of the pack ice as it built up on the shoreline. And there were some big storms and they got pushed back into land. Um, so we had a dry spell where we were not getting, like, I mean, I was having a ton of fun, but the guys with the biggest lens need to get the closest to the wildlife. And so we were just looking for that cooperative bear, or a bear that had, was in a good mood for some filming. And so we went back to this site, and there had been all of this sparring by the bears. You could see just the snow was just exploded all over, big craters, footprints all over from them wrestling. And we're like, okay, that would be great footage in here. Let's try and be there. And just nothing was working. Like maybe this big bear that had killed the other one was in the area and everyone was on edge or something. But we show up one day and I spot with the binoculars just a glimpse of fur, and there's a bear bedded down comfortable. And I go, okay, here we go. Like, fingers crossed, like, let's go for it. It might not be the best scenery, but it's what we've got today. And so we position ourselves and we put the wind on our back so that the scent is going to the bear, and make sure it instantly kind of reaffirms what we are. And so we do that, and then we move to get the lighting we want, and then we move in and get closer and closer and closer. And then we get to a point and it's just snowdrifts in the way, a willow bush in the way. And the cameramen are just itching to ask the question, can we change our location? And I know it's going to come. And I go, hey guys, let's just hang out here with the other person for a second. You guys stay in a group. I'm going to just walk wide and see if I can get a better view, and then I'll beckon you over. So I walk over. I don't know how far we are. Close enough that, you can see everything. But I get out the binoculars and I'm scoping out the bear, and I'm going, it hasn't even moved. Usually by now, even if I think I'm paying attention, I probably should have missed some little peeks of its eyes or a twitch or a rustle. And nothing's happened. I'm going, what is up with this bear? So I move in closer. I look back, look at the group. I'm like, no, just stay there. I walk in closer. And eventually I just look at this bear, and it's like kind of got bedhead. Its hair is all smushed and one of its paws is contorted. And I go, oh, that's a dead bear. But I can't really, I'm not going to call that on, across the radio. I'm not going to shout that and then be wrong. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth and say, hey guys, there's a dead bear. And we all like drop our guard. And sure enough, this thing stands up, makes me look bad. So I go, I'm just going to go in and take a closer look. Something's up. And now I'm thinking, my mind's racing. Like, if this bear is alive, it's not doing well. Whether it's just very hungry, very old, injured, I don't know. But I'm thinking, the group's back there, the bear's up here, and I'm beside this bear now. And I get right up to it, and I'm like 2 or 3 steps away, and I'm now got a firearm at the ready. And I'm just thinking in my head, like, is it that important to know that? Like, if it's dead, we're not going to film it. But curiosity gets me, and I swing around and I look at it, and sure enough, tongue's out, pool of blood's there. I watch it for a while. The body's not even heaving. And so I call everybody in, and by that point, I've literally poked the bear, and nothing. So I go, okay, but it's still soft to the touch. It's not cold. It's not bloated in rigor mortis, but it's soft to the touch. And its stomach was bloated only. And so anyways, we jump on a communication device. I message some veterinarian scientists, some government biologists, and I go, wildlife officers. I'm like, what the heck is happening here? And they go, well, you've got to check it for signs of injury. And so we end up rolling this bear over, and here's this bear, all 4 paws up in the air, kind of stiff from the cold. And the first thing, the one cameraman looks at me, he goes, well, I guess we know it's a male. It's just proudly on display there. Yeah.
Yeah. That all makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, that was quite the encounter. And even before that, and this is me linking things together. There's no way to know for sure, but we had a single younger bear that had been bouncing around, and we had seen it a few times in a row, and it was always very inquisitive. And a lot of times when you're a 3-year-old bear and you've been pushed off of your mother for the first season to fend for yourself, you're trying to latch on to something. You're trying to find a new family, or you're trying to find someone to teach you to hunt. And we had to kind of establish some boundaries with that bear, but it was very inquisitive, like always coming to check us out. Or one day we were filming two big males hanging out, and this young one showed up on scene and came through where our snow machines were parked. So we had to go back and kind of keep it off of our gear. But the last night we saw that little bear on its own was right in that area, and it was just exhausted. It came up, these two big male bears kind of wouldn't have it, kind of kept it away from them. Just no fighting, but just were, hey, get away. And it came over to us and laid down and just fell asleep staring at us, just with this look of despair. And then 20, or not even 24 hours later, 16, 18 hours later, that bear's dead. Or a small young bear is dead within a couple hundred meters of that location. And we just thought, like, that bear just came in and ticked off the wrong big ornery one. Kind of met its match, I guess. But it was neat to kind of like be in the area long enough and see behavior, see the social structure or the dynamics anyways of this polar bear population. And yeah, it was pretty cool for us.
Mark, you had a question a minute ago. I think I cut you off.
No worries. I do, but it's all good. You didn't cut me off.
Okay.
I'm just listening to the story. Jimmy, the experiences you're having are from a wildlife enthusiast, biologist, photographer, videographer are just amazing. And I saw it on your Instagram 2 or 3 days ago, a stream of stories, and people looking at your Instagram also can get, I mean, it's worth talking about in a while because this is too cool to drop yet, but there's so much variety on there. But your Instagram's not your straight up name. It's Jimmy_Pawistik, Pawistik. And our producer always puts that on YouTube for those of you enjoying the production on video, which we encourage. But watching the Frozen North is what it was called, right? The episode.
Yeah, that was the episode title. Yeah.
And the footage was unbelievable. I mean, the size of that pack of wolves, the health of the pack, the drone footage chasing the moose through the forest. That perspective, right, was like that's so real and so awesome. As I was joking before the podcast a little bit, it was beyond the wild.
Oh, yeah, and that's just like speaking with both the cameramans that were on that shoot and the director that was there for a little bit of it at the start, all just phenomenal people. And the one cameraman, his experience with wolves is just through the roof, and bears and everything. But he speaks highly of it still, and like just how that was one of his top experiences of his life in terms of interactions and the quality. And for me, like it's been I was just on the phone the other day trying to line up some more work similar to this. And I just told the guy on the phone, I said, I'm just throwing it on the table. I said, just so you know, this is exactly what I want to do in my spare time. I said, like, I couldn't throw out that, proverbial, I'll do it for free. But it was like, we were talking about the distance of how far away we were going and the costs and the complication of travel. And I was basically telling him, like, I'm going to show up on day 1. And you have me until day 70 or whatever it's going to be. And I said, I don't want a break and I'm not going to need a break. Like, it's what I thrive on. And being with these wildlife filmmakers, I don't think they're any different than most of us, but their patience is through the roof, and their experience with having gotten to be in these scenarios before or had these stunning moments, like, and the pressure's on them through the roof to hit record or to, stay in focus or whatever. But it's so thrilling for me to go out with them and actually get to just spend the time. And the number of times we saw the wolf pack just form up in single file and just, full tilt running, or that steady kind of traveling speed was unreal. And I'm standing over most of the time when they're droning. Like, I might be binoculars up saying head left, head right, or whatever. But like, we got footage of the some moose chases, and it's through the willows, through the spruces, and I'm right over the shoulders of the guys, and like, you know where it's happening. It's maybe 200 meters, 300 meters on the other side of the water or something, but it's still so thrilling to have like seen the lead up in person, and then be able to just continue that. You know, what your imagination had thought of is now just materializing in the footage, and it astounds me, like, especially this last series here in this episode that came out. Like, the footage is so cool, and they got good quality stuff and unique and just stunning landscape. But the amount of stuff they've got is just astronomical, and you just go, how did that person sit there in the editing room and cut things? And like, I would hope that there's going to be some interesting behind the scenes, because that's a big thing with all the streaming platforms, is offering those extra episodes on behind the scenes. You know, because not every, like, after the series comes out, or after the project is created, a lot of this editing, it's done, and then the rest of the stuff is shelved and archived, and rarely ever viewed again. And I've heard anecdotally about stuff that's been filmed and it'll just never get used because it wasn't, you know, the style of that customer, you know, who the product was being made for. Like, oh, that's too much gore, or oh, that's, with polar bears, a constant thing is the ear tags. There's a few companies that just do not want to have any filming of ear tags, and so they'll scrap footage if it has ear tags, or they'll go, okay, that is the most iconic footage. It's worth paying for the CGI to get rid of the ear tag in the epic shot. But yeah, to just know what's out there being seen is pretty unreal to me. And then finally seeing a product made out of it is even more special. But yeah, pretty cool.
On these shoots that you're out there, of like these guided filmmaking adventures, are you? I mean, I know your focus has got to be just, getting the guys where they need to be, getting the shots, all that good stuff. But I'm assuming you have a camera and you're taking advantage of the opportunities as well, or no?
It's hit and miss, and it's kind of controversial in guiding. Some guides, or in some guiding realms, the guide and customer, or whatever you client, or dynamic, is the client is paid for the opportunity, and so the guide is not to even take advantage of it, which is respect. That's a that's a viewpoint I can understand. And then there's other times where a guide is able to enjoy it and snap a memento, and there's a difference between using things personally and using things professionally. And I'll come back to that one because that's interesting for me. But the other thing is, as a guide, like, your predominant role ultimately is safety. Like, on paper, it's probably like find the wildlife, read the behavior, kind of track, I guess. And then the second half is safety and managing the group and managing the wildlife. So if you can achieve those two things, confidently, then you've got the ability to maybe take a picture. But there's so many times I come home from these trips, and I'm talking with my friends at home, and you're catching up, and they're like, you're telling them some unbelievable story, and they're like, I want to see the pictures, and you're like, oh my goodness, I was just living the moment. And then also you go, I've got 20 other things going around in my head, and there's times where for me, it's not until that night when I finish a day and I go, oh my goodness, that would have been so nice to have my camera out. Like, in the moment, my focus is so much so in tune with the wildlife that I need to just, if there's anything going on where I'm not comfortable, I don't even know if my camera's on me, in my head. But then once you get an animal that's gotten more, I choose my words, like, accustomed to you, not habituated, but once the animals have figured out that, in the famous words of my buddy Boomer, who helped train me on polar bears, you can either be food, you can either be a threat, or you can be the environment. And so as soon as that bear realizes we're just part of the environment and we're not a food source and we're not a threat, then that polar bear, that wolf pack, that moose or whatever is just indifferent. And so yeah, it's those moments where I can take a breath and go, I'm getting out my camera, sort of thing.
So that,
and because of that, because of that, I've captured some pretty cool, like, behind the scenes footage for that's ended up getting used by some of the productions for advertising it, for doing the behind the scenes, because I'm there. I'm not the one with this huge CN20 lens on a red camera zoomed into a cuticle or something. I've got my camera gear, and so I'm snapping kind of candid moments and stuff. And one of my favorite moments from this shoot was, we had been positioning ourselves down the coastline. The wolf pack was transiting the coast, obviously on the move. So we were getting way out in front. We would drive about 2 miles off the coast, right out on the sea ice, and we would just steady speed, kind of even low speed, and get past the wolves, and then open up the speed and get out in front. And we would, to give the animals a chance to pick to come to us, or to not cut them off. Also give ourselves time to set up and be ready. We would sometimes jump by 4 miles in front of these animals. And that seems ridiculous unless you've been in that landscape and you realize how flat it is and you're looking across sea ice. But sometimes it was a gamble. So you'd take off and you'd get 3-4 miles out in front of them, and then you'd park and you'd be stationary, and you'd be judging, or guessing, I should say. I hope that the pack is going to run on this beach ridge or whatever, or on this smooth ice versus the rough pressure ridges. And so you'd try and position yourself. Well, we've positioned ourselves forward, and the one operator, he's getting his camera gear out. The other operator is straight into the drone, and his pack is flipped out in front of him. He's kneeling in the snow, and it's comical. The guys are so bundled up, and he's got big warm mitts, and he's trying to work a drone, and he's so hyper focused, and he's down like this, and he goes, Jimmy, can you see where I am? And so that's the cue. Like, okay, yeah, my binoculars are up. I see your green light. And he's about to go guide me to the wolf pack. And the cameraman goes, so Jimmy, can you see the drone? I go, yeah. He goes, can you see the wolves? I go, yeah. And he says, okay, can you give me some instructions? And I don't know much about drones yet, and actually how to fly them. But I just said, do you have a home button? And in my head, I'm thinking there's got to be the button that just brings the drone straight back to home. And he looks up at me, he goes, why is that? And I go, and I point over his shoulder, and he just turns around, and there's this wolf from the pack that has came right up to us and is just checking us out. And that was kind of one of the days where the wolf pack finally got fully comfortable with us, and were aware of what we were and couldn't have cared what we were. And they would bed down and just be scattered all around us. And then some of the pups would come in, and then eventually we actually even got the adults that would come in and kind of finally go, we're comfortable with you. You're all right, sort of thing. But yeah, the look on his face, and my camera was at the ready. And when he looked up, saw this wolf over his shoulder, just a little bit back, and I just snapped this picture. Like, I couldn't wait to finish the day, get it on the laptop and airdrop it to him, and, or whatever, for that personal memory. So yeah. I kind of more and more now, I'm trying to think about those fun photos of how do I capture the moment for these people who are behind the lens all the time. Yeah. And it tells a cool story. Like, that's a neat thing for me to talk with my friends. That's showing them one more picture of of an animal is great. Behavior is fun, but like setting the scene and capturing the moment is pretty neat to share. Yeah.
Kind of like style photography for those videographers, and that they're doing. That's pretty cool. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
A street photographer on the pack ice.
Yeah. The one thing I was thinking though at the start there, going off on this story of like taking the pictures while working, the interesting dynamic is like each time I work, it's always a discussion too. Like, what, they know what my role is there. Like, it's for safety, and it's for guiding the crew around safety and finding the wildlife. That's predominant, or the traveling on the ice. But there's been a couple times where they've straightforward asked if I'm able to, while completing that as my primary role, still do some photography, because they like to have a stills photographer on the shoots. So if I can do both, and obviously just prioritize the safety and the wildlife stuff first, it's a neat little extra impetus for me to keep the camera handy and yeah. But every time I think of cameras and photography as a potential to actually earn income, I get just reset by a camera falling through the ice into the ocean, or falling off the hood of a truck. So I try and purposely just take photos for my fun, and if there's a bonus that it can get used, then that's purely a bonus. But when I go out on a daily basis on my own, or for work, my focus is just, it's not really, I would never think of myself as a paid photographer. It's someone who's passionate photography and the wildlife kind of more so than the photography. And I kind of choose, like, keep that as my mantra, because anytime I think, sweet, I just earned money, oh my goodness, I'll see my buddy at the shop.
That's got to be rewarding, though. I mean, what you're doing and what you're able to get these guys, these videographers on, and to be a part of that, to be a part of that success, that's got to be very rewarding. I could definitely see how that would be.
It's pretty cool. Well, and to go off of this shoot, to go to a different one that'll come out in a year or so, but I got to work with this cool guy from the UK, Simon. Oh my goodness, hold on, I gotta look up his last name. I just drew a blank. It could be because of the beer. Simon King, Jesus. Simon King, he's a super cool guy and just legendary. I'm working with him, and I see the production company's risk assessment form and all their permits, and it's got a biography on each personnel in the shoot, and their qualifications or permits that are appropriate for the shoot. And so I'm flipping through this, and I read this guy's coming, and 4 decades. Literally, the sentence was 4 decades of experience wildlife filmmaking. And I'm going like, oh my goodness, who is this guy? Like, this is going to be also slightly, who is this guy? How old is he? And but he shows up, and we're hanging out for maybe a couple weeks up in the Arctic, filming bears and birds and everything, and just tapping him for knowledge and his background and what got him into it was just so rewarding. And so it's like the people. I told Ron too, like when you guys were up in Churchill, like meeting everybody in the Beyond the Wild group that came to Churchill was just through the roof, because not the average guest, not the average tourist. Your friends were people focused on being happy, seeing the wildlife and watching the behavior and getting what they can out of that, not having these grand expectations or really any pressure that I felt from them. So
yeah, well, you weren't in Mark's rig, obviously.
Oh, slam! That's like a rotate above the head and slam.
He is a black belt, Mark.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, and sometimes as a guide working with the film crews, it can be interesting. I can think of 1 or 2 opportunities that I was in, and there was a little bit of I don't know how to say it, like the grass was greener on the other side. The guides that were out there that I was seeing, and they're working with regular tourists, are coming in for 5, maybe 7 days, and trying to have the best experiences possible. And then I'm getting to be there for 4 or 5 weeks with the same crew. Like for me, and we did this in Churchill, like we kind of kept our vehicles as a unit, because you started to understand how people worked, and it kept people happy. You got so-and-so there that you now know that person always sets up their tripod, and you should probably be on their right-hand side because they're just they explode their pack or whatever it might be. I'm making that up. But the more you're around each other in the outdoors, the more you see how each other operates, the more you can work together seamlessly, and you can get more out of it. So the film companies and production teams are just the epitome of that. Like you just get in the groove, and you know how each other are running, and the opportunities I'm able to get with the film crews and have fun doing, it would be much more rare, less common to get that with the regular group on a short duration tour, because I haven't built the trust with them yet to or experience with them and familiarity around the wildlife that we can start to kind of not push the limits, but go further, go beyond with the experiences, and really know that we're all safe, know that we're not impacting the wildlife, and going at a cool, slow pace.
Everybody's
Oh
going
yeah,
to behave properly and all those things, right? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like lots of times, people will. It's unfair. Like I'll pull out the phone and show a behind the scenes photo of something going on, and someone's like, "I can't believe you're that close to fill in the blank of the wildlife. It doesn't matter what it is," and you go, "Okay, I can see why you think that, but this moment in time took 3 hours to get to." 3 hours of patience, 3 hours of um, experience or luck or whatever you want to call it, and trying to set up a moment like that. And if people aren't patient, they won't get those same experiences, or they're fewer and further between. And so I've been in spots where I'm out there as a guide and working with a film crew, and then I see guides out there and they're working with their guests. And sometimes, depending on the relationship and how everybody is, it can be to everyone's benefit. I go to the filmers and the cameraman. I go, "Hey, this is awesome. We've got a group over there. We've got a group over there. We're all on radios. We're all on spot in reaches or whatever. Think of them as scouts, and instead of thinking of it as a nuisance or in the way of us, or and then the other side of the coin is the guides are going out for a shorter window of the day, whereas we're like starting before sunup, going till after sundown, and they've got us out there all day. And if we've got a good back and forth, a good rapport, we can be feeding information and going, "Hey, we just saw a bear traveling this way. Don't spend too much time with it. It wasn't very cooperative. It didn't like people," or we could say, "Hey, we just saw two bears scrapping and one just kind of got sent away in a mood. Be careful of that one," and we can help people have better experiences and
Right.
tailor their trip. So it's, yeah, but yeah, sometimes the guides they get to see, you come back and you just have this epic day with a small unique group of people and more intimate experience with wildlife, and they can get envious of what you get to do and stuff. So
Sure.
hard to balance that some days, especially when you've got your own camera with you and sort of thing. Yeah.
I'd go back on that comment you made, Jimmy, about it took 3 hours. And
Mhm.
Charles Glatzler always says, how long did it take to get the shot? Well, it's either a thousandth of a second or 2,000th of a second, or it's 10 years.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
it's a lifetime of experience that got you in that position sometimes. Um,
Absolutely.
and experience with you and the crew, because if you're not comfortable as the guide with the crew that you've got out there, it's not ever going to happen. Doesn't matter how many hours you have.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is a question that we often ask, but we usually don't get um, as experienced people on the show as far as field time. So, what is your favorite ever outdoor experience? Does not have to be wildlife centric, doesn't have to be photography or film centric, just favorite ever. For a guy with your
Oh,
experience, this has got to be pretty epic.
I have to think about it for a second. While I'm thinking of it and trying to figure out the best one, it's interesting you asked that, because the Simon King, one of the after spending days with him and killing time through the heat of the day, when we're just chit chatting and trying to stay attuned to where bears are, he goes, what's your favorite thing at home to film?" And without a breath in my, I just said otters, river otters.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of expected him to be, shocked or whatever. And he just right away leaned in with questions like, "What's the exact behavior you enjoy seeing? What's the, um, he wanted to know why. And you could tell he probably agreed that there's a good reason for it. And so definitely for me, it's otters. The most fun experiences I've had. And I'm constantly trying to have more. And it's a battle, because they're out there just having fun. And so I like the personality of otters and their behavior. And um, I've got a few spots locally that there's family groups that are up to seven or eight animals year after year. So I don't know what's special about that area, but they're sticking as a unit. And there's one stretch of river that's a lake, a very small rapid, a lake, kind of a marshy section, a river section. This is getting confusing, but big segmented areas with kind of defined separation. And there's 4 different family groups of otters, and the smallest group is 5.
Mm.
So you're driving you can drive along the road down the side of this river and just walk a few hundred meters in and get 4 different family groups throughout the day. So that's one of my favorite spots to go. And wintertime, I'm Canadian, so embracing the winter is important. It's a must. And when I look at my own Instagram feed, I laugh sometimes that I just don't like taking pictures of animals that have busy backgrounds. I love snow and ice, and I also hate trying to photograph great horned owls in Saskatchewan because they're always in a poplar tree, and there's all these dead branches, and they just look like snags, and blocking the most beautiful bird in the world. But so otters, and the favorite encounter for me was one spring. It's late in the thaw period, and right out in front of my friend's house, they've got a marina and they rent dock space in the summer. There's a rapid that comes under the highway and spews out into this lake, and it's sketchy. It's thin ice. There's current. But I was just in the area teaching an ice rescue course to kind of fire departments and stuff. And so I had gear with me. So I donned this big, bright yellow dry suit. And I even grab a little toboggan that's got flotation in it. And I walk out with my camera gear on this toboggan. And I get out on the ice. And I'm maybe 5 meters from the open water. So we're down to kind of 3 inches of ice maybe. And so I get out there, and the otters are all around, and I've got nothing to do for the rest of the day. So I've got a cup of coffee and my camera gear, and I'm set. And I'm by myself, so I have no one to be accountable for my safety. So, and I've already lots of experience wrecking my camera in the same scenario. And so I've learned the camera is over top of the sled. If I fall through, the sled is floating. It might get splashed, but it's going to be okay. And I'm now in a dry suit, so I should be okay too. But I get out there on the ice, and it's wiggling beneath my weight. And as I sit still, that flexibility in the ice deflects the sheet down. So I'm in a puddle of ice. And as the otters are around and they're fishing and coming up with long-nosed suckers and little jackfish, and there's eagles around coming down and pestering the otters for their food, there's about 5 or 6 otters at least. And all of a sudden they're kind of done eating a fish, and they all just turn and look at me at the same time. And then they just bound into the water, find their openings and cracks and holes, and they're all disappeared. And then all of a sudden it was like being in a life-size whack-a-mole, like at the carnival. And in between my feet at these different little breathing holes, heads are popping up within an arm span. So I am right out there in the thin ice, right out there, inching my way closer and closer. And I'm just sitting still thinking, I'll probably break through today. And I end up just having a couple hours of these otters just too close for my camera even to focus on. And so I was able to have fun and take some photos and enjoy it. And then I was able to just purely enjoy the moment and put that camera aside and soak it in. And I literally had one of the otters come up, and it popped its head out of the hole and laid its head across my shins, so over my boots, and just stared at me. And I've never had that I'm trying to think if I've ever had that with wildlife at all in Saskatchewan, because we're just not. I don't know what it is. The animals are just a little bit on edge, maybe too much population and stuff. But that was pretty darn special. Just otters. They're so playful and at home on the ice that's their realm. Like summertime otters are fun. But to see them sliding, to see them rolling around on the ice and bathing in the snow is pretty silly. I like that.
It's my nemesis animal. I still can't get otter. Yeah, you guys, Ron, you guys, Mark, you guys have noticed my nemesis animal seems to fluctuate and change.
Mine too.
Over time.
It was kingfishers till I went to Brazil, and then there's kingfishers everywhere. And they almost just sit on your lap. We did have some great encounters with giant otters in Brazil, in the Pantanal, and that was incredible. I was hanging over the side of the boat and trying to get water level, and it was fun.
Well, and for me, the winter time is I can I can comfortably say it. I like doing it in the winter more because it makes it easier. You've got these distinct holes where they come out, and um, clean or whatever surfaces. But yeah, they can be a nemesis for me still, for sure. Like I'll spend all day at a spot, and you can just hear. I've had them underneath me, exactly underneath me. I'm looking through a crack between my feet, and I can see their nostrils and their whiskers, and they're in the air cavity below the ice on some sort of mud mound, and they're just breathing and kind of hissing gently at each other and discussing who this idiot is up on the ice. But
Anytime you can have an experience like that with wildlife, in my mind, and we're fortunate as people that spend a lot of time out there with the animals to be able to, I think all of us here have had something similar to that, in one way, shape, or another. But
well, and for me too, like anytime someone asks or I think about like my favorite moments with wildlife or favorite wildlife or whatever environment, I'm certainly drawn always back to Canada and our wildlife we have at home, because through my life, like, I'm outside. I say I'm outside quite a bit, and I'm paying attention. I'm attentive to things, but there's still some wildlife I've only seen a handful of times in my life, and or never even had a close view of one. I can think of like a fisher. I've seen two in my life, and they've just been fleeting glimpses, and I go, that's pretty silly. But 10 years ago, roughly, I started going to Antarctica for work, and you go down there, and the wildlife is in your face every day, and even though there's wildlife there that's lived back in the time where they were being hunted almost to extinction in Antarctica, like by the sealers and whalers, um, now the populations are rebounding, and probably rebounding to levels of they've never been before. And so the wildlife encounters down there are through the roof, because the wildlife is not afraid of us. They're not. Um, they just wonder what we are. They look at us as another seal on the beach, another penguin in the snow, and I've had whales physically come up and touch us with their pectoral fins. Like literally, my body's been bumped by whales, like humpbacks and minkies and orcas and stuff like that. But getting to come home and see that in Canadian wildlife is just mind blowing. Like we actually still have places in Canada or in the U.S. that, if you know where to look, if you put in the extra effort and get out there, you can have those same kind of encounters. They're just way few and far between. Because we've got so much, urban or hunting pressure or just busyness, that a lot of wildlife is very trepidatious around us. So I think anytime I have a moment with Canadian wildlife, it's just leaps and bounds higher in the scale of cool encounters.
yeah.
So, Jason,
Mm-hmm.
I'm up there with Jimmy, and we got talking about Svalbard. And he said, "Oh, you got to go with my buddy." And it was Jens
Was it Jens?
Wikström. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah.
Oh, me and Jens were just talking yesterday morning. I get days and nights confused, but I think he's just getting. Yeah, he was just crossing the Drake Passage in Antarctica. Me and him have been cabin mates before down there, and he claimed that I was poisoning him because I was getting a cabin to myself while he was sick, and there might be truth in it. I'm not sure. Like that's great.
Can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, but that's interesting too. Like through a cameraman I met on this shoot with the wolves and the polar bears that was just released. On that shoot, the cameraman's raving. He goes, you've got to get yourself to Patagonia, to Chile, and try and go photograph pumas, go see them. It's unreal. And it took me weeks on the shoot before I could get this guy to even show me photos of his own. Like, I want to see what you've done, some of your background. And the first thing he showed me was a highlight clip of are they called pikas? Those little he did a highlight reel of pikas for a shoot. And I go, well, that's actually pretty cool. I said, but I was, thinking bigger. So anyways, he sets me up with a guy in southern Chile, and he goes, this is the guy, just call him. He goes, he's you with pumas. And so I get down there, and I'm working in Antarctica, and on all my downtime, I'm messaging this guy over in Chile, and just sight unseen, boom, he just locks off this time, and he goes, absolutely, you come for those dates, we will make it work. And so ended up having some puma encounters with him. Well, many puma encounters, but it was interesting. And I can't remember if we were talking about this before the podcast or at the start, but he's quizzing me about polar bears, and I've seen photos, but how do you get so close? And then I'm quizzing him about pumas or cougars or whatever, and like, how do you get so close? And it's just that we should both instantly understand the same thing, but it's just something new for you and exciting, and but it was a few days into cruising the mountainsides with him, and I go, so Vicente, like, what's the deal? Like, nobody here is carrying anything for defense. And I said, like, I don't think we need anything, but is it not, is there a standard? And he goes, oh yes, sometimes the guides carry pepper spray, and but we don't, we aren't, or whatever. It's just the two of us. Like, again, we'll build that trust over the week. And I go, oh, so there's just never been any encounters that have gone bad? And he goes, oh no, there have. And it was a guide. There was an attack on a guide, and he told me all about it. And it was the wildlife mistaking someone for prey, and the way he explained it. And then I was comparing what he was telling me to the stories from Canada growing up and in the news about some of the attacks from cougars and fatalities, and each one that I could remember, and it was only two, both fell in line with how the guides in Chile in the Taurus Alpines operate, which is just, you can never run. You can never accidentally be seen in the side vision as a fast moving prey animal. And so he right away, when I told him the stories of a few fatalities in Canada back in the day, he goes right away, that makes sense. He goes, they were, on a mountain bike going through the forest. The cougar probably didn't even realize they weren't the deer that was being watched for the half hour before. They just saw fast motion and they reacted. And that's what happened with the guide, I believe, that had an incident in Chile, was they were, for whatever reason, were running. And that's now become like a universal do not run sort of thing. So, but yeah, it's neat meeting like my friend Jens in Svalbard, and I met an absolute kooky character in Florida, scuba diving with sharks. I went down and did a shark diving trip, and his name's Jim as well. And I'm prepared for this. I'm preparing for the shark diving trip, and I'm sitting on the dock waiting to load the boat, and some friends haven't arrived yet, and so I'm prepping gear, and all of a sudden the dive master looks at me and he goes, well, what's your telephoto lens for? And I said, oh, well, I'm here for another week. I'm going to go try and take some wildlife photography opportunities. And he goes, well, what do you like to shoot? And I go, well, yesterday I was banding great horned owls at home. And he just was beside himself. And so for the whole diving trip, we're out there diving with full-grown tiger sharks, no cages, and searching for hammerheads and bull sharks and black tips and reef shark, all these different sharks. But me and him are chatting about owls the whole time.
That's so
I can never get over how cool it is meeting different people and their passions for whatever the species might be, and sharing those similar traits. And yeah,
it's awesome. Never gets
old. I
old.
saw that tiger shark on your page, and it got me. Now that I'm an expert and I've swam with black tips, I'm ready to go. Let's get the great whites. Let's go. I'm kidding, but yeah.
That's what I want, but
I really do
want
that.
The best spot to do it is now no longer can't go.
So, where's that? For
Guadalupe Island. Guadalupe Island off the Baja Peninsula on the Pacific side.
I mean, it's not really my area, but I know enough people down there in the diving world. There's an interesting dynamic because the government doesn't want too much of that tourism. Like, the people are scared of it still, but there's places out. There's a couple dive companies that go out to Socorro.
Yep.
And further, and you could do it out there
with the great whites. I know there's a lot of other species out in Socorro, but
yeah, maybe don't put it on the podcast. But great whites without a
Okay.
Jimmy, you're on a podcast.
Yeah.
The other Jim, he loves it. He goes down there quite a bit and gets out to Socorro. But he was telling me, he's like, we are always a little bit cautious of what we show of our footage. Like, if I'm taking a photo of a great white as a diver, that's one thing. But when someone beside me gets a photo of me with one, not in a, you kind of go, hey, that's for your personal phone reel. Maybe don't make that public, or
Right.
just because they're worried about kind of public or
Sure.
JG can beep that out like you were cussing.
yeah.
Yes, there we go. Perfect.
Yeah, this is live. Oh shoot, yeah.
Well, Jimmy, thank you very much. You're a busy guy. I know you got a lot going on, but we really appreciate you coming on and sharing some of those stories with us. And that was incredible footage that that we watched last night and today.
Yeah, I was pretty blown away. It took me a day to be able to watch it in Canada, but I was able to, so that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a really good job.
Yeah, they did. It was really a great episode. Now I didn't even. This is how bad I am. I didn't even know that series was out there, and so
Yeah.
now I'm all excited to go watch the other ones I haven't seen. So,
Well, I can't remember. Yeah, I don't think it was until November that I knew the title of the series and when it was going to be on, or even who it was for. I don't think I knew it was for NBC until the series was released, or like the trailer. And they had like in the very first trailer back in the fall, they had a clip of the wolves running up a frozen creek, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's it, finally. Quickly messaged the director. I go, is this us? He goes, absolutely. It'll be on, airing in February or whatever. And
that's cool.
it's nice to finally see it. And then I can finally, that's the other thing. Like most of the stuff I shoot, not that it's super high profile or whatever, but it's, respectfully, you can't start sharing the coolest stuff until it's out. And then even when it is out, you still, the production has rights to their stuff, and you don't want to steal their thunder or whatever. So there's complicated years down the road of when you can treat something like your own or whatever.
Or whether you can even talk about it, right? Sometimes.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah. But it's always, I mean, with that too, I'm also lucky though, that I'm always like, I'm not a high-end camera operator. I'm the local guide. So the company's also, there's a lot of grace with me. They go, well, it's professional courtesy, and they know that I operate smart. And, if I'm working on a shoot where we're filming polar bears jumping and killing belugas, I'm not coming home from that day in the field posting a selfie video of me
right
with that in the background, because they know that I'm there for the shoot and stuff. But they also know that I'm out there on my own, and I'm out there a lot more than just the shoot. So there's a bit of a gray area. It's like, when did that get taken? Was that the week before we were there or the week after, sort of thing?
Right.
Sure.
You're going to be in Churchill again in November?
I'm going to be in Churchill August and September, working back at Discover Churchill. I'm super excited for that. And currently, I'm aiming for my first time to get up to Katmai National Park in June and August, or June and July beforehand.
Awesome. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. Try and see some brown bears.
There won't be a lot of trying.
We'll be there.
Yeah.
We'll be there in August as well.
Yeah. I was just actually, Ron, I was talking with Drew a couple weeks ago about some stuff, and or maybe this is actually from the fall, but Drew always comments on how, like, his a life of experience with grizzlies, and then now he's in Churchill and tons of experience with polar bears, but he just still has that distrust for polar bears. Like, he just looks at them and he goes, they're up to something. I just don't even want to give them a millimeter of leeway. But a grizzly, no problem. And so in my mind, I'm taking this information in from Drew, and I'm going, like, Drew's an expert, and he's an expert on both because he's living and breathing it. But then I was watching a clip from a Canadian scientist that's an expert on polar bears, and he comments that he would, like, in his life, he's handled how many polar bears, mind you, they're sedated, or they're bear cubs. But he goes, I've handled so many polar bears and I've been around so many polar bears, but I'll never trust a grizzly. They're just way more, something's going on there that I wouldn't ever trust. And I go, it's very interesting to hear someone that's a expert in the one and have that still kind of like layman's comment on the other species. Like
Right.
and even with Drew, it's like, yeah, so you got a guy that he'll come from brown bears and say something about polar bears, and someone will come from polar bears and say the same thing about brown bears, and you go, it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
It's a healthy respect.
Exactly.
Well, for sure. That's one act. Yeah. The last few weeks, I was working up in the Churchill area, kind of monitoring wildlife around some workers out and it was in denning areas, polar bear denning areas. And, there's all these macho 20-something-year-olds in the camp, and it's a remote camp every day. It was an hour flight by helicopter to get to our working areas. And we would just get dropped off for 10, 12-hour days by helicopter. Just, it's 35 below. It's quite interesting, but we're back in our camp at night and people are going, well, I'm not worried about black bears. They're just a black bear. And, talking all this. And it's like, how many bears have you ever seen in your life? How many close encounters have you seen? And so kind of the typical male machoism too, just talking down the one to bolster the other or something. And I thought, like statistics, every large predator still should have all of our respect. Like watching a wolf pack chew a moose bones to shreds and swallowing it was the biggest enlightening moment ever for me. Was growing up with dogs, and you give a dog a leg bone and it lasts for weeks and it's gnawing it away. And then you see a moose kill after the pack has eaten it. And there's nothing left except for that skull and some antlers, and everything else has been chewed up. And you go, it might look like a dog, but its bite strength is 10 times stronger per square inch. Yeah, definitely some healthy respect there for sure.
Mark?
Sagittal crest.
That's why
That's
don't
the
eat
difference. Sagittal crest is what the wolves have, and the jaw musculature extends from the lower jaw further and makes for a much stronger bite compared to domestic dogs, so they can crunch those bones. But amazing. Wolves are just everything about them. Love it. So the Americas, season 1, episode 5, the Frozen North. And honestly, the image, and it's got to stick with everybody that watches it, with the wolf peering under the polar bear.
Oh my goodness.
That footage. I mean, that just is like right there. That was worth watching the episode to see these two predators so intelligent, so a part of their environment, but together interacting like that was outstanding. So great work.
That was an absolute standout moment. And actually, when I saw the trailer and I saw that clip got put in, like I'm like scrambling for the phone on the kitchen counter. Like, I got to message the cameraman right now, and like, I can't believe it. And but actually, that exact moment, that was so comical because, and the first reply I get back from the camera operator when I message him that just yesterday, he's laughing and he goes, I think you've got a future career as a field director, because when that moment was happening, the main director had headed back to the UK, and superb guy. He's now got his own production company in Canada. He moved from the UK, but he was the youngest on scene. The other guys are just super experienced, but so they've got this director there, and he was all, making comments. And so, of course, like you always make little jokes behind afterwards. And when he left, I told the cameraman, I said, hey, don't worry. So-and-so told me to make sure that you get the good shots. Like he's giving me instructions. So as the polar bear is guarding its kill, and these wolves are circling and coming in with some hesitation, and just the natural position of us, like it's very hard to ever allow yourself to lay on the ground with polar bears because they'll just see you as food down low. But it was up on some altitude from us on this snowdrift and a beach ridge. So we're eye level with that wolf. We're looking under the belly of the bear, and the cameraman is there with his big camera rig. And I just softly give him an elbow, and I said, make sure you get some tights. And like, I don't know most of the film industry's lingo, but I had learned that one. And I go, zoom in, punch in and get some tights. And he like completely broke focus and turns to me. It's just like half a look of disgust, half pissed off, but also half laughing. And so he remembered that moment too. He's like, of course it made it in this series. He goes, you directed it.
Did you get a director's credit?
No, I didn't want to push it. I mean, it sounds cheesy, but it was, well, they called me James in the credits, but it's fun to make it in the credits to actually kind of record that you've been a part of it. And that doesn't always happen. There's other guides. We had one guide, Michael Gerhardt, that was out with us a couple days helping out. And, lots of people don't end up making it on the cut. Like I've even heard sometimes not every cameraman gets listed as a cameraman unless they take enough footage or key footage. So it's it's definitely like a very nice tip of the hat from the directors and stuff that they included my name in there. I'm just pretty happy. Put it on the fridge sort of thing.
Yeah.
My mom will be happy. Yeah. Proud of me.
Gold star.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thanks so much for having me on here tonight. And Ron, I can't wait to see you in a few weeks here. It's not too far away.
Can't believe it. Can't believe you're going to come down out of the frozen north.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Jimmy, it's been great to meet you, as limited as this interaction is through the screen on the podcast, but your passion for what you do. And honestly, I think our audience will love the fact that you're able to do it in this way. I mean, it's the animals first. It's guiding to these incredible experiences. And what resonates with me is by doing it the way you do, you're so much in touch with the environment, right? I mean, you're focused on safety, animal behavior. All of that feeds into becoming the best at interpreting wildlife for the scenario, right? That's the school of experience that builds, that is the way there's no other, it's the best way, to go about learning about wildlife is spending time with wildlife and observing it. And your eye for this is obviously very clear. Your Instagram shows it, but it's been a true joy to hear your stories from the field. And I feel like it's just the tip of the iceberg, but to have watched that today and to hear the behind the scenes and fully appreciate everything that was going on, it's been great fun to have you on the podcast, and I hope we can do it again. And I hope we have the pleasure of meeting in the field someday. I know we all feel that way. Ron's
create some stories on our together out there in the field.
Mm-hmm.
They're the best. Yes,
that's great. I'm trying to find. There's I just met a guide this year, and he does work in northern Quebec at a lodge that has a great muskox population right there, and just general wildlife. But I need to find a way to get up to there. And I think it's pretty untapped because it's in French Canada. So not a lot of people.
Well, I might be going there.
Is it Nuna Lodge?
Nuna Wild. And so I've got a group there in September this year, August next year. So what's his name? I haven't.
The guide is Dominique. He's a dog musher from maybe Mount Tremblant area, like kind of around Montreal.
Oh, that's not far from me. Okay.
And he's known the owner for a while, and he goes up there and guides, and super guy. Yeah.
I'll make a note. Maybe I'll get to meet him this fall.
You should put the bug in their ear about trying to do like a earlier summer, like fall colors will be amazing, but I want to go see baby muskoxen one day.
For sure. Yeah. There are different times I'd like to be there. The first trip will be the fall color and hopefully some flurries, and then the second trip will be summer with a little more of the pre-rut and hoping of seeing males having a bit of a confrontation for herd posturing that way.
Oh, awesome.
So as you know from your experience, each season has its highlights that are wondrous to experience. But yeah, the babies, they're always cute, right? Muskox babies are...
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
The little mini prehistoric cute things, right?
We grew up with a herd of muskox in Saskatoon. So one of the individuals that got me into kind of the outdoor world was a university researcher in the veterinarian college, and she specializes in Arctic ungulates. And so when I was in high school, she convinced me to learn how to kayak and stuff, and taught me how to kayak. And then kind of that was right when I started guiding. But she's she's now like the country's probably leading researcher on Arctic parasitology and studying muskoxen, caribou, Dall sheep, sort of thing. And she actually is crisscrossed with the film industry world. She helped out with a logistics and shared a plane flight into Ellesmere a few years ago for some wolf filming up there. And so it's kind of neat to see her name come back through. And yeah.
That'll be I'm sorry. The Ellesmere wolf stuff it's on my list.
My goodness. Yeah. Well, stay tuned. I'm talking with somebody about I know there's an outfitter that's doing some stuff, but looking at some other options as well. So we might be able to work on something. Yeah.
Secret lingo here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who needs emojis?
Well, and I'm trying to convince Jens from Svalbard to put down the work binoculars and just come and have a fun trip somewhere. And he's feeling the pinch because he's bought in a house for some reason. But we shouldn't tease him online. But anyways, like it's interesting. Like when you're a guide and you can find other like-minded people to get out there, it's quite amazing. So
for sure. Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure. I could just keep going with this. Listening to your stories have been great entertainment. For somebody who just feels everything, the harshness, right? The cold, and the drone stuff. Again, that was having it in front of the bear. That was fantastic too, right? Just to get that. No, I've never seen a show with that perspective, with the movement that you were able to guide them to with the animals because of the modern equipment.
Like that shot, that shot of the bear with the wolf looking under between its legs, that's long lens on legs right there, which was unreal. And then that moment that was shot, they captured the same moment from a drone, and you see the aerial view of the bear over its kill and the wolves circling. It's so neat to see how they mesh and gel, and pretty amazing. Yeah.
It's a whole new level to storytelling that simultaneously have those different perspectives that we couldn't have had. I mean, you wouldn't have had a helicopter up there before to get that, right? No. Yeah. Modern drones are quiet. They can be high enough. You get that perspective at the same time. And for videography, that's just modern magic, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, I look forward to hearing how your trip with Ron goes. It's loved Wyoming, loved visiting Ron and all the experiences there. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Just saying. Just saying. Ron.
We know how we rate, but you have fun,
Jimmy. And Jason, it's great to see you as always, buddy. And hearing, I'm glad that Bora was satisfactory.
It'll do, donkey.
to say the least. Jeez. Yeah, awesome. So happy for you guys. Well, I look forward to hearing how it goes together on this upcoming trip.
Absolutely.
Ron and Jimmy, and want to give a quick shout out before we go out to Pictureline. We had a message come in on Instagram this week, DM somebody wanting to order and couldn't remember the contact there. So obviously it's Pictureline sponsoring our podcast, helping this production come together on a weekly basis for you, along with Canon USA, of course. Colin Bigelow, if you contact Pictureline, it's obviously there's links on our website, beyondthewildpodcast.com, or you can find Colin Bigelow on Instagram, or just call Pictureline and ask for him, and he'll be the person to help you out. His reputation is second to none for everybody that we've sent. We've all sent people through him, and they've had great experiences. And I know it's not a big deal, but you'll get some stickers from Beyond the Wild podcast to throw on your laptop or your Nalgene in the field or something that way. And we appreciate the connection as always. And Jimmy, again, can't thank you enough.
Sure. Mark, Jason, Ron, it's awesome to swap stories.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Yeah, let's make some. All right.
And that's a wrap for another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA.